Hello friends, welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel if you haven't been here before. I'm Erin, and for today's video we are going to be reading some more Reddit Let's Not Meet stories. Now if you don't know what Reddit is, it is a website that's kind of like got a whole bunch of forums on it that you can follow, and the Let's Not Meet subreddit are true stories of like stalkers and creepy people and what have you. I think they're really interesting and really creepy. So I figured we'd read some more since there's plenty of them on there. And of course I will have all of the original stories linked down below so you can check them out on Reddit if you would like to. But jumping right on into it, we will start with this one. It is from the user Gulagetten. I probably butchered that name. But anyway, the title of their post is called "Going to the Store with My Mom May Have Prevented Her from Getting Kidnapped." This happened a couple years ago when I was a senior in high school living in Southern California. It was later in the evening, sometime between 8 and 8:30, and my mom and I had just gotten home from a long day of driving and visiting family to discover that our cat was completely out of food. Been there. Sympathize with that. I was tired of being in the car by then and did not want to go to Petco to get cat food. My mom begged me to go with her, so I finally caved and said yes. Looking back now, I am so grateful that I did, because if I hadn't decided to go, I think there is a good chance my mom would have never come home. Another important detail I want to mention is that the windows on the car my mom had were extremely tinted, making it pretty much impossible to see into the car. So we pull into the parking lot of Petco, and I look around and notice there's only a few cars. There's only a few other cars, with one car parked a few rows to the back of us. My mom says I can wait in the car since she's just going in real quick to pick up food. A minute after my mom walks out of the car and is halfway to the store, the car that was parked a few rows back pulls up in the spot right next to our car on the passenger side. I think it's a little strange, but think that maybe the person wanted a closer spot to the store. A man steps out of the car and gets his big German Shepherd out of the back of his car and walks into the store. I'm looking inside the store and notice the guy is watching my mom and following her around, but not enough for her to notice. He gets ahead of her in line, and after he checks out, he stands outside the entrance and is watching her check out. My mom walks out of the store and the guy starts walking behind her. At this point, I'm starting to get a bad feeling and I'm very creeped out. When my mom makes it back to our car, she opens the door to put the cat food in, and the guy opens the back of his car right next to ours and starts talking to her and motioning for her to come look at something in the back of his car. My mom, being completely oblivious, takes a few steps over and is looking into the back of his car. His hands start to move toward his waist, and I immediately start yelling for her to get in our car right now. This guy looks super shocked, as I'm guessing he never saw me in the car, and stops talking to her. My mom looks very confused, but after I yell at her some more to get in the car, she finally does. The creepy guy immediately gets into his car and drives off in a hurry. When my mom gets into the car, I ask her what the guy was saying to her, and she tells me he was telling her to look at something he got for his dog that was in the back of his car. I tell her everything I observed and that I'm pretty sure he was trying to abduct her. Creepy Petco guy, let's not meet ever again. That one's definitely a creepy one. Now maybe this is just me being pessimistic and overly cautious, but I gotta tell you, if I was by myself and a stranger ever asked me to come look at something in their car, I would kindly either just be a complete bitch and ignore them totally and keep doing what I was doing, or maybe I'd be on the nicer side and say, no thanks, if you need help you're gonna have to find somebody else, which is probably equally bitchy, but you're not abducting me. Not happening. So that one's definitely a creepy story. I think the moral of the story on that one though is don't go looking in the back of strangers' cars. This one is written by McErmygirl15. Like I said, I'll have these linked down below so you'll be able to see who actually wrote it, because I'm sure I'm butchering their usernames. And this one is called Creepy Poet. So this happened to me quite a few years ago when I was about 17 or 18. I was working at a grocery store as a bagger most days after school. So one day I'm doing my thing, bagging groceries, and this guy, he was probably in his early 20s, comes up and hands me a little slip of paper, doesn't say anything, and leaves. I was in the middle of working, so I put it in my pocket and forgot about it. A few hours later I remember it and read it. It's a really creepy poem about how he thinks I'm so beautiful and basically comes into the store just to watch me and is wondering if I've ever noticed him. And it has his name and number at the bottom. I didn't realize how creepy it was at the time because I was young and flattered, so later that night, I texted him. I had a boyfriend, so I thought it would be nice and tell him, hey, thanks, but sorry type of thing. I made the mistake of not mentioning my boyfriend outright in the first text. I just said thanks for the poem. Not even 5 minutes after I send the text, the dude adds me on Facebook. I'm assuming he just searched my phone number and found me. And he starts commenting on all my public profile pictures. He had also texted asking if I wanted to meet up. So I text him again and say sorry, but I actually have a boyfriend. Dude loses his mind. Texts me all kinds of me things about how I'm actually the ugliest girl he's ever seen and he just felt bad for me and all this stuff. He even said he was going to come to my work and teach me a lesson for being a tease. I never answered and he kept sending texts for days until he must have realized I wasn't going to answer. I was paranoid going into work for like a year after that, thinking he'd be there, but luckily I never saw him again. So creepy psycho poet man, let's not meet. So, one of these days, when I'm ready for the whole public to know about it, I have a very similar story, only this has to do with a guy that I went on like maybe 2 or 3 dates with that kind of lost his shit when I told him that I didn't want to see him again. And he got really creepy like that with the incessant texting and everything. But that's a whole story for a different video, which eventually one day I'll do. So if you want to hear about my creepy, infatuated stalker dude, leave a comment down below. So I can see how that would be creepy. She didn't block the dude's number. I totally would have blocked his number. I guess that's just me though. I mean, that's what I ended up having to do in my situation. But like I said, that's for a totally different video. Anyway, let's move on to the next one. So this next one was written by Tay14073 and it's called I Don't Think I'll Ever Dog Sit Again. So this happened about a year ago. I like to dog sit for my coworkers in the hospital for extra cash. One of the nurses wanted me to dog sit for her while her and her family went out of town. I had done this many times, so I had no problem dog sitting alone. She lived in a very nice area of town, so bad things weren't likely to happen. Or at least that I thought. She told me that her husband was a police officer for the city they lived in, but his guns would be locked away. She also went on to tell me that they have a security system that will record anything by all doors. She gave me the lock information if it was needed, but insisted that I should be fine. Fast forward to me dog sitting. The first couple nights were fairly normal. It was a big house, so it was a little creepy feeling, but nothing I haven't dealt with before. One night, me and my boyfriend, at the time, were watching TV in the living room. The blinds were open to the backyard. It was most likely around midnight since me and him both worked night schedules, and we saw a light flash through the yard. But it wasn't a car passing by because it angled down to the grass. The dog was in the kennel since he was a pup and needed to be for sleep, so the dog wouldn't have been able to go and find someone. Well, we both noticed it, so we decided to go outside and check it out. But no one was there. Absolutely nothing or no one. So naturally we went to bed because now it was getting to be 2 a.m. While lying in the bedroom upstairs talking, we heard a door shut from downstairs. I immediately shushed my boyfriend at the time and said, "Did you hear that?" And he said, "Yeah, but I don't know what it was." He gets up to lock the bedroom door and turn off the lights. He whispers to me, "Be quiet and listen." We sat in the dark room shaking. We heard yet another door shut downstairs. He tells me, "Call the cops," as he grabbed a lamp at the bedside and stands by the door. As I was on the phone with the operator, she tries to calm me down, telling me officers were on their way to the scene. We heard footsteps of our invader coming upstairs to where we were at. I started to quietly, telling the lady on the phone the person was upstairs with us now. We heard a knock at the door and footsteps going back down the stairs. I cried, telling the lady there's a knock at the door. She reassured me that it was the cops, but I had to come downstairs to let them in. I told her, "You're insane. A person is in the house and you want me to go downstairs?" She tells me that it's protocol to let them in to search. So me and my boyfriend ran down the stairs as fast as we could to open the door, lamp still in hand. We opened the door for the cops and told them there's someone here and what we heard. They walk into the house telling us to wait outside while they investigate. One officer goes straight outside to the back as he yells out into the dark, "If anyone's out here, make yourself known." Me and my boyfriend hear rustling through the bushes near us. The officers didn't find anyone in the home, but we know there was. We know what we heard. Fast forward a couple months later, when we were watching a movie about an invasion. I believe it was called Open House on Netflix, and we got to talking about our experience together. Come to find, that same day of the invasion, I believe, I met the intruder. I remember I was outside around morning time getting ready to get in my car when a young man walking by asked me if the car in their driveway was for sale. I said I'm not sure, I'm dog sitting for them, but they should be back in a few days. He thanked me kindly for telling me and walked off. I looked at the car next to mine in the driveway and it didn't have a for sale sign anywhere. I had no idea at the time what I had done, but I know that the man walking by was our invader. I'm still afraid to dog sit again. That one is definitely a creepy one. At least she had her boyfriend with her at the time, and I absolutely would have been terrified if that had been me. I used to pet sit once upon a time. Never had anything like that happen though, thank God. And we are going to do one last one. This one is a little bit on the longer side, but I think it's worth reading. And this one was written by Avery Smallthing, and this is called The Time a Friend and I Were Almost Trafficked. Hi all, Happy New Year. I want to start off by saying that everybody in the story is safe, but it was one of the closest calls I've had in my life, and I feel like I have to tell my story in order to raise awareness. I live in a major city in practically the pit of hell state, born and raised here. I'm very familiar with my surroundings. I'm also aware of the fact that my city is one of the worst hubs for human trafficking, and living here can be very, very dangerous. Kind of wonder if this is Philadelphia, which I used to live there. Felt a little bit familiar to me, being the pit of hell or what have you. But anyway, let's keep going. Despite all this, I've taken pride in knowing that I do everything I can to remain safe as possible. I've had close calls before. And then she lists some other posts I guess she has, which I'll probably have to go back and read those eventually too. The one is, a shady landlord gave a stranger copies of my key, and then the other one is, a man tried to enter as soon as I was alone, and other horrifying tales. And consider myself an avid murderino. I'm pretty prepped. At the time I had 2 things of pepper spray. One in my favorite jacket pocket, one velcroed to my desk at work. I also had 2 trusty pocket knives. One always on me, one in my car door pocket. Oh, my taser never leaves my bag. I avoid shady situations, and despite being a small lady, I know my stuff. Yay for self-defense classes. My point is, I'm a very paranoid small chihuahua, and I still get into a scary situation. On to the story. It is summer and hot as hell out. I've got a date with my favorite gal pal, and I swing by her place to pick her up. She tells me she has a job interview to go to first, and I agree to go with her. No big deal. She's a sweet, tiny thing from a small town in the Midwest and very new to city life and wild things that can happen here. As we drive into a different city, I ask her about the job. It's a modeling gig. Oh, cool. For who? I found an ad on Craigslist. It's just sports clothes. The Craigslist thing sets a small, distant alarm off in my head, but I push it to the side. Where the heck are we going anyway? When we pull up to a Starbucks a bit outside of the city, the alarm in my head becomes a little less faint. Relax, I tell myself. I've gone to legit job interviews at coffee shops before. There's always been a good reason. We arrive first, late still, but end up waiting about 15 minutes. Kinda weird, but Kat's relieved we're not the rude ones when she gets a text saying he's here. I look around the Starbucks and outside at the parking lot trying to figure out who the mystery man can be, when I notice a tall, well-dressed man step out of a black SUV. He smiles at us as he approaches, and I figure that's our guy. I could have sworn that SUV had been parked there for a while. I ask Kat if she wants me to step in line and grab her a drink, but she practically begs me to stay with her. Okay, I can do that. I didn't think it looked very professional, but I don't protest. The man, named Jack, leads us to an isolated table outside and doesn't say much about my presence other than it was okay for me to be there. I get on my phone and shoot a text to my fiance explaining where I was and what I was doing. He shoots back a "be careful," and I sit pretty to watch the show. Jack had this strange accent that I couldn't place my finger on. Looking back, I'm not even sure it was real. He starts asking Kat the usual questions, and I notice she's absolutely bombing the interview. She doesn't have much experience and didn't bother to bring a portfolio. But despite this, he doesn't seem to care. The alarm in my head is much louder than a whisper, but it completely blares when he asks if she'd be comfortable doing lingerie shots as well. Dear sweet Kat says she doesn't have an issue with it, but would prefer to mostly do sports clothing like they had discussed earlier. She asks to see some of his work, and he pulls up a lingerie Instagram. All lingerie, no clothing at all. He holds it in front of her face and pulls it away immediately. And when she asks if there was more she'd be doing, Jack goes, "That was it," and hurries the conversation along. He says we need to go right now to his studio at a place he briefly mentioned the name of to sign papers and get everything squared away. It has to be done today. He's not working tomorrow, and his coworkers won't do it right. I absolutely hate everything about this, and I'm trying to glare some sense into her, but nothing is getting through. Kat agrees, and he turns his attention to me. "Do you want to be a part of this too?" I immediately know nothing about this is professional. I look down at my beat-up docs and green cargo pants, a shirt that has flames and a slightly edgy logo on it, and can't help but scoff. That's not really my thing. I'll just ride. He studies me for a second and says we can all ride with him, directing his attention to Kat. "No, I don't want to leave my car. We'll follow you." He looks offended that I butt in, but asks where we were parked. "Right in front of the store." I got it. I pull Kat to the Jeep and make sure we walk behind him. As soon as we get into the car, I lock the doors to keep from freaking out. We are not going. This doesn't feel right. What about the lingerie? Everything I say she has an excuse for. We pull out of the parking lot and I follow Jack's SUV, but this whole time I'm trying to figure out how to get out of this. Kat doesn't like the lingerie, but this could be a door for her and she desperately needs the money. What if it is legit? He was alone anyways. You have your knife and spray, right? Of course I do, but I'm 5'2" to this man's 6'3", and Jack could very much have friends, and I don't want to possibly kill or be killed. I realize that Kat is batshit. We drive along as I try to talk to her, and we start driving out into the desert, the middle of absolute nowhere. There's a divider in the road that prevents U-turns, and I get an eerie feeling that Jack knew to take us this way. I'm absolutely desperate at this point. I pull out my phone and snap a picture of Jack's SUV license plate. I upload it to Snapchat where friends can see it. Kat starts getting uncomfortable when she realizes how far we've driven. The name of the place he mentioned springs back into my head, and I know it's familiar from somewhere. A commercial jingle that's distant but catchy. It's a restaurant or a hotel or something. He wouldn't have a studio there. Please, just look it up. And she does. It's a casino. Ah, they must be in Vegas. Unless this man has rented out a space, he wouldn't have a studio there. It's not consistent with the information he gave us at all. Kat is freaked at this point. I tell her this isn't uncommon and he is trying to confuse us the entire time. Throughout the entire interview, she had a confused and hesitant look on her face, like this wasn't what she was promised or expecting at all. Kat finally agrees that we need to get out of there, and I start to breathe easy again. I notice that every 5 minutes or so, there's a break in the medians. It's a rough, quick stop and turnaround, but it'll have to do. So I do, and we absolutely gun it. Kat gets a call from Jack, and at first she ignores it. I convince her to call back, and she gets nothing at all, like the number had blocked her. It didn't go through. I tell her to screenshot the Craigslist ad, but she can't find it anywhere. It's like every trace of Jack disappeared. We go back to her apartment, and I tell her she needs to report it. She promises she will, but later, because she doesn't want her husband to know. He didn't even know she had the interview to begin with, and she didn't want him to know what happened. If I hadn't driven her, she would have gone alone without telling a soul, and who knows what could have happened. I tried not to scold her too badly, but I just reminded her that our city was very different and much more dangerous than where she's from. Sweet cat, I hope you're a little more awakened to this world. And I'm sorry for that. I'm almost 4 months pregnant and now finally ready to get out of this damn dangerous city. Please, 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 dear Redditor, be safe out there. It's such a scary world, and be damned careful with Craigslist. Jack, I'm almost 4 months pregnant and now ready to get out of this damn dangerous city. Please, 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 dear Redditor, be safe out there. It's such a scary world, and be damned careful with Craigslist. Jack, if you're really the scary guy my gut deemed you to be, F you, and let's not ever meet again. So I would eventually like to do a video on just how bad human trafficking is in our country. I don't think that a lot of people realize how bad it is, but it's definitely a very, very scary thing. Not just what you see in movies. Can be scarier than that. There are plenty of people who are kidnapped and taken and forced into human trafficking. So I think that this girl was spot on. If the dude wasn't going to take them into trafficking, he certainly was doing some kind of shady shit if he was just taking them to a casino. So it's a good thing they followed their gut. It's usually pretty important to follow your gut. If something is telling you that something's wrong, probably is. That's it for this video, guys. If you liked it, please give me a big old thumbs up. If you want to see more videos like this, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Bye!